The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions, and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. It's Tuesday night here on Armed Radio, and that means you're listening to 2AT Second Amendment Talk. I am Daniel Sanders, and lost Rod temporarily. We're going to try and get him back, but in the meantime, we're going to roll on with it.
All right.
There he is. Hey, Rod, how's it going?
Hey, welcome to be. Thanks for having me back.
Oh man,
you
never a dull moment around here. Rod, what you been up to?
You went totally silent. I'm like cricket. Like, man, I hope he comes back because I don't know what he's going to say next.
Oh, gotta love technology. Technology is always a great and wonderful thing. Always so dependent and reliable. So, but as we always do, here at the start of every show, we want to give a big shout out to the troops out there, men and women deployed overseas and serving on the home front. We appreciate everything y'all are doing. Keep up the good work and come home safe. And we're all rooting for you here back home. Got a lot to talk about. A lot has happened, since the last time we were on here. And it's some pretty sad chain of events that's been going on. The first one we're going to talk about is the shooting at Naval Air.
Hey, Daniel, are you still there? I'm not sure if I'm the one that's dropping out or if it's you.
Have you got? Maybe who knows? But
right. So the shooting.
Like I was saying, three sailors were. Yes. Shooting Naval Air Station Florida. 3 sailors were shot and killed when trying to stop a Saudi Arabia legally purchased 9mm Glock handgun and several extra magazines. Now, of course, federal law prohibits any foreign national from purchasing firearms within the United States, with a few exceptions. And in this particular case, he found a loophole that would allow him to legally purchase a firearm from a licensed dealer if he had a state-issued hunting license.
Okay, so here's the thing. We're all about the Second Amendment here on this channel, and the Second Amendment applies to its citizens, right?
Right.
I mean, if you denounce your United States citizenship, if you're an illegal alien, then you can't own or purchase a gun. Now, there are provisions for legal aliens, which it sounds like this Air Force candidate or student, or I'm imagining he was a pilot or a pilot student pilot. Yeah. So what's the right answer? What are your thoughts, Dean?
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a double-edged sword. I mean, like you said, if you're not a citizen or if you have denounced your citizenship, the rules of the Constitution, the rights and protections under the Constitution, technically no longer apply to you because the Constitution was written for the citizens of the United States.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to think of a time where we would want legal aliens to be able to own and possess and buy firearms. And in my mind, I'm kind of like a carte blanche kind of dude. But then you have instances like this where it makes you kind of step back and think about it, like, but active duty Marine Corps. I've served alongside people that weren't citizens, but they carried a gun for this country, which I think makes them it brings them up to the level. I think if you serve honorably, you should be made a United States citizen. But that's another topic.
Yeah, and I agree 100% there. If somebody comes over here on a work visa or something like that, they enlist in the armed services and they serve out their time honorably, then absolutely, I think that in and of itself, right there, I still think they would.
Yeah, you're cutting out, Daniel. And I'm not sure if it's you, me, or both, but
if we can avoid any major technical issues this evening. But this shooting is being investigated as a act of terror. FBI and everybody, they're investigating this as an act of terror. And from what I've read, in leading up to this, the shooter, he was hosting like dinner parties, and he was showing videos to his dinner guests of stuff like what he did, these active shooter situations. Just all kinds of red flags going off here and there. And nobody really picked up on it, I guess. Nobody was thinking, hey, we've got this foreign national who's showing us these videos of these active shooter events, not really, praising it, but at the same time, not really condemning it either. And, like I said, nobody really picked up on it. They just kind of brushed it under the rug, like, okay, yeah, whatever, it is what it is.
Yeah, apparently he was tweeting, anti-American and anti-Saudi things on Twitter, which I haven't verified, but it sounds like the guy could have been a little confused, right? Some kind of mental illness for sure, because nobody in their right mind takes a gun to school. Essentially, he was in a school. And opens fire. Now, here's an issue that I think is kind of perplexing, though. Under the same laws that allow people to carry firearms, we are restricted from carrying firearms on any federal building or on a military base. Some states allow federal parks. South Carolina is one of those states that allows you to carry concealed into a park. But my point is that how come our service members who are trained in firearms, handling and operation, aren't allowed to carry even to defend themselves? I understand that on U.S. soil, as United States citizens, the military isn't enacted, right? I mean, the only place the United States military works is overseas, because that's the way, I can't remember the exact statute or regulation, because you don't want, military coups and stuff like that here in the United States. But to be able to defend yourself, at least with a firearm, I think should be something worth considering.
Absolutely, because, as it stands right now, as far as my experience goes, the only people I've ever seen armed on a military base are military police, security forces, and officer of the day.
Marine Corps Recruit Depot, Parris Island. They had arranged that the public, you could use recreationally if you're a veteran or active duty service member. You could only use it on Saturday, and there were very, very strict rules on carrying your firearm directly to the range and straight off the base. There was no, stopping for fuel, getting fuel, getting snacks or anything like that. So it was very restrictive on people using a range recreationally.
Yeah, and that's it's sad that they have that in place. I mean, if you look at now Naval Air Station.
Hey Daniel, you cut out from my end. I'm not sure if I'm still on or if you're on. But I think the point that you're making is that they're going to lock down, they're going to tighten and restrict even more so people's ability to defend themselves, despite the fact that there's already a law in place, rules and regulations.
Yeah, and like I was saying, you've got now with Pensacola, the recruiting station in Chattanooga, Fort Hood, Texas. You've had all of these military installations and offices where shootings have taken place, and the individuals there were not able to defend themselves. We have these men and women serving our country. We send them overseas into a war zone, and we arm them to the teeth with the best weapons we have available to defend themselves over there, but we can't guarantee their safety here at home.
Yeah, we arm, train, and equip them, and then we basically painted a target on every service member, and then said, hey, you know what? We're not gonna let them defend themselves. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. I mean, because what grabs headlines? More than a foreign national or even a domestic terrorist attacking and successfully killing U.S. service members here at home where they should be safe.
Exactly. Crying shame that something like this is, and I hope to God this will this will open up the eyes of the higher ups in the chain of command to say, hey, maybe we should rethink letting our men and women carry something concealed to defend themselves with. It doesn't have to be an issued weapon from the armory. It can be, make a specialized license that you can apply for to carry on base. You gotta make sure all of your annual training is up to date as far as your marksmanship and everything is concerned, and attend additional training to cover self-defense, defense of others, active.
Yeah, I think, and you could even incentivize it, take it to a level where, hey, you know what, for you to be able to carry, you have to teach a firearm safety class to a local school, or some kind of like a boys and girls club or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. As a matter of fact, I might even I'm all people who listen to the show know I'm all about writing emails to people. I might just write an email to somebody that has somebody who wears bigger pants than I do, and see if we can't get the ball rolling on something like this.
Yeah, what's the worst they can do is say no, right? Or at least leave it to the discretion of the commander, right, of the base.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. So, but yeah, it's now one good thing I did notice from out of this. One of the 3 sailors that was killed. I can't find anything with his name on it right now to save my life, but I do recall we were talking about it last night on my show, Two Beards Talking, and shooting the shooter and get him taken out. So definite props to him. Of course, all of our thoughts and prayers go out to the families of those who were killed. But good on him for sure for doing what he did to what I would call save lives. I think he saved more lives by doing what he did.
Yeah, you had faded out, so I'm not sure if I lost connection, but I believe it was the same gentleman that they were talking about on the radio this morning. He was shot 5 times. He was a Academy grad, and that he's the one that directed law enforcement basically it did what he could with the last few seconds of his life.
Yeah. So, like I said, our thoughts and prayers are with the family members of those that lost their lives at Pensacola, and we will definitely keep an eye on this, and hopefully things in the future will change. Excuse me. So we do have some other incidents to cover, of course, and this one is actually pretty messed up. I have to say, law enforcement did not do a good job with this situation. I'm talking about the shooting in Miami. Two armed robbers robbed a jewelry store and then hijacked a UPS truck, took the driver hostage, and led police on a 23-mile high-speed chase that ended basically in the middle of a busy highway. What stopped the chase was the truck hit a wall of traffic that was waiting on a traffic light to turn green, and law enforcement converged on the truck and basically surrounded it and the civilian vehicles in the area. And I'd heard one report that 18 different officers discharged over 400 rounds firing at this truck. The two hijackers were killed, but unfortunately so was the driver of the truck and an innocent bystander sitting in his vehicle at the scene. 70-year-old male was sitting in traffic and tragically lost his life during this event. This 100% wholeheartedly points to the 5th firearm safety rule: know your target and what lies beyond.
Yeah, and if they knew that there was a driver, a citizen, it was a hostage situation, man, and part of me understands, like, the call to action. If when you're in the thick of it, you make the best decision you can with the facts that are available at the time. And maybe they thought that somehow the UPS driver was complicit or even an accomplice. My brother's a UPS driver, so to me this would be, I would be more than just a little outraged if that was his truck that they had stolen and subsequently lost his life due to law enforcement.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of video, aerial video, cell phone video from people that were in traffic while this was going on that shows officers using civilian vehicles as cover. It's not like these guys were in the truck saying, "We have a hostage, don't come any closer or we're going to start shooting." These men were already shooting. They were shooting at officers during the chase, and they were shooting at officers when the chase came to an end in the middle of traffic. So, I get, officers are being shot at, and the officers are responding with proportional force, but at the same time, they're not really taking into account, hey, this smart car right here, this is not a law enforcement vehicle, this is a civilian driving this vehicle. Maybe I shouldn't hide behind it. This...
Yeah, just the other day, I was at my local MVets with my girlfriend, and I walked outside to smoke, and I saw an MRAP painted, ODG, and it had sheriff on the side, and so as I'm listening to the story, I'm like, well, why didn't they just run up in there with an MRAP? What do you think?
I can't say one way or the other. I don't know if Miami and Miramar PD have access to any type of up-armored vehicles like that. I'm sure they probably do. But if you think about it, I never got my MRAP license. But when I got my Humvee license, I think the highest speed we ever hit in training was only 45 miles an hour. But I think 60 miles an hour was maybe the fastest you were going to get one before it started feeling like a spaceship trying to re-enter the atmosphere.
I had a bump at 60 miles an hour and got air. And then May 18th, 2017, Miami Beach Police obtain MRAPs. I just Googled it. So yeah,
Okay.
to answer the question, they have MRAPs there in Miami.
Okay. Now then, on the flip side of that coin, what?
Man, you faded out again, so I'm not sure if you're broadcasting and I'm in the fog, or if I'm broadcasting and you're in the fog. But yeah. So MRAPs, they're a great piece of gear. They're mine resistant, and a UPS truck wouldn't stand any kind of chance against one of these vehicles.
Right.
And they're bulletproof. So.
Right. But my question is, would an MRAP have been able to keep up in a high-speed chase, is my question. Because, I think I saw one report where they were reaching speeds of 90, 95, around in there. And I don't know if an MRAP is capable of reaching those speeds.
Well, there was the other, the not the MRAP, the MTV, or it was supposed to replace the Humvee. It's a smaller version. That's actually the one I drove, not the MRAP. Hang on, let me type up some Googles here.
Yeah. But again, it's like I said, it goes back to that fifth safety rule: know your target and what lies beyond. Not just you, but those around you. And I was talking about this with somebody before the show. It's a strong possibility that a stray round from one of the officer's guns hit this bystander that was sitting in his vehicle. It's all speculation at this point. The investigation is still ongoing, and it could be, according to the police department, months to even years before the investigation is complete. But it's a very strong possibility that a stray round from an officer's gun struck and killed this innocent bystander. More 50-50.
That doesn't take away the fact that...
No, it doesn't.
No matter who shot, right? Ultimately, who's responsible here? It's the criminals, right? I understand, know your target and what's beyond. Or, be sure of your target and what's beyond. But had they not committed the crime, none of this would have happened. So I'm not trying to defend or condone the actions of law enforcement. But what they did is less wrong than the people who actually committed, were involved in the commission of the crime that resulted in the driver's death. Even though it cost them their life as well. That is that's not going to help the family who's I'm assuming it was a man, UPS driver.
Yes.
Whose father, brother, son, didn't come home from work that day.
Yeah, it's and I understand and I agree with what you're saying, but the point that I'm making is, if it comes out that it was a stray round from law enforcement that killed this innocent bystander, well, the families aren't going to care. They're not going to look at it as, oh, well, if the criminals hadn't done this, then we wouldn't be in this situation. They're going to look at it as, well, officers should have done their job better. And unfortunately, it will lead to a lawsuit if it comes down to that, and the city will have to pay up. And I hate that.
Right, and as long as, and I think that the travesty would actually be if they tried to bring criminal charges against the law enforcement officer. I've been on the trigger side of it, and had to pull the trigger in situations where, man, it really could have gone either way.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. If they do bring criminal charges on that, then it would be a huge travesty. But, like I said, it's an ongoing investigation, and it can be, they said it could take months to even years before this is even finished. So, for those of you who are listening out there, please, 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 for the...
Well, you faded out, so I'm not sure, as I said before, if it's me or if it's you. But, yeah, I want to finish your sentence, but I have no idea what you're talking about. So, Daniel, when you get back, let me know.
Shooting at the range, if you're firing in self-defense, if you're if you're overseas in a war zone, know your target and what lies beyond. That is the most important thing. Know your target and what lies beyond. I don't think I could stress that enough. So, we're going to roll on. Now we're going to Virginia. Virginia is, I get the feeling Virginia is going to be the start of the next revolution here.
Really? What makes you say that?
For everything that they're trying to do. I'm getting it pulled up right now. For Senate Bill 64, SB 64, currently sitting on the House floor, if I'm not mistaken, in the Virginia House.
Okay, so I'm going to read the Culpeper County Sheriff's Office tweet or Facebook page. It says, every sheriff and Commonwealth attorney in Virginia will see the consequences if our General Assembly passes further unnecessary gun restrictions. Red flag laws without due process will create enormous conflict as well. America has more guns than citizens, and murder has long been illegal. At best, the proposed gun restrictions will disarm or handicap our law-abiding citizens in their defense and possibly cause a criminal to choose another tool for evil. I'd like our...
Yeah.
I'd like to think our... I was just reading the thing because I wasn't sure, again, like if you'd cut out or if I was still broadcasting, so... Anyway.
Yeah, plain and simple. Red flag laws. Virginia wants to pass them, and local law enforcement, county law enforcement all across the state of Virginia are saying, fuck you, buddy. So, in a measure to counteract what the state is trying to do, city and county jurisdictions are actually passing sanctuary bills. Second Amendment sanctuary cities, as it were. So that if red flag laws are enacted, if you live in one of these sanctuary cities, you're safe. The big reasons, like I said, why I think the next revolution is going to start in Virginia.
I don't know. South Carolina fired the first shots of the Civil War. So my money's on here, partly because I'm here too.
And then, like I was saying, Senate Bill number 64, was pre-filed November 21st of this year, offered for January 8th, 2020. And this is reenacting an old bill, changing a little bit of wording here and there, and adding some additional. So, it says that subsection 18.2-433.2 of the Code of Virginia is amended and reenacted as follows. Paramilitary activity prohibited. A person has been, and it's been changed from shall be to is. A person is guilty of unlawful paramilitary activity, punishable by a Class 5 felony if he, 1, teaches or demonstrates to any other person the use, application, or making of any firearm, explosive, or incendiary device, or technique capable of causing injury or death to persons, knowing or having reason to know or intending that such training will be employed for use in or in furtherance of a civil disorder. That's number 1. 1 and 2 were already written into the bill. Like I said, they're reenacting this bill. And basically what's that saying? Well, Rod, I'll ask you as an instructor, what does that say to you?
Well, that says that man, they're really trying to turn the screws, and really, it's kind of a catch-22, and in an effort, an attempt to intimidate people from taking up practices such as mine. My passion is to teach. You know, I want people to learn, to know, to understand, and be comfortable with their firearm so that they can exercise their rights, so they can shoot recreationally, so they can defend themselves, so they can compete, you know, all of these things. So when I hear that, you know, am I now culpable for, if one of my clients, one of my students, turns around and becomes violent, or you know, am I now going to be held accountable for somebody else's actions? Even though, yeah, I may have trained them, you know, I may have enabled them to receive their concealed weapons permit in the state of South Carolina. Yeah, I mean, I guess it leaves a lot to be questioned.
Yeah. Yeah, plain and simple. You know, paramilitary activity prohibited. They're talking about, you know, militias in this case.
Well, you know, what is paramilitary though? Like, you know, I teach people how to clear a room, because if there's a home invasion, right, somebody's in your house, you know, you need to clear rooms before you enter them, right? I mean, if you're trying to neutralize a threat in your house, to a threat to your family, that could be, or that very much so is, something I learned from the military. So, it's not a large step from saying, hey, what you're teaching is paramilitary stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You know, militias, private militias, not state militias, but private militias, things like that, is what they're considering paramilitary activity, but they're leaving a very broad, definition so they can kind of everything here. You know, like I've said on the show before, in the state of Alabama, I can be walking down the street and trip over a crack in the sidewalk at 2:00 in the afternoon, and if an officer sees me trip on the sidewalk, that's grounds enough right there on the spot for him to detain me and take me in for public intox. It's kind of, and I get the feeling that's kind of what Virginia is trying to do with this. If you're, say you live in Virginia and you're at the range teaching a group of people how to shoot and defend themselves, well, law enforcement can roll up and say, this is paramilitary activity, we're taking you all in. Because that's actually part of number 2. Number 2 says, assembles with one or more persons for the purpose of training with, practicing with, or being instructed in the use of any firearm, explosive, or incendiary device, or technique capable of causing injury or death to persons, intending to employ such training for use or in furtherance of a civil disorder.
Right. So that was a whole lot of words saying that all the things that you're doing for civil disorder, but they don't go on to quantify what is a civil disorder, right? I mean, so if one of my clients, you know, let's say they're a hothead and they brandish a firearm in a road rage incident, they don't shoot anybody. That is a civil disorder. So now that former client and myself could, under the laws in Virginia, it sounds like to me, and I'm not a lawyer, but it sounds like to me that, yeah, I very much so could be held accountable for, again, doing something that I'm passionate about.
Yeah, and, you know, the way I'm reading it, I'm not an attorney either, but the way I'm reading it, the way it reads to me is law enforcement can come in and wrap you up. There doesn't have to be any kind of civil disorder. It says intending to employ on paragraph 2, intending to employ such training for use in or in furtherance of a civil disorder. Intending. Or in paragraph 1, for the instructor, knowing or having reason to know or intending that such training will be employed for use in or in furtherance of a civil disorder. Law enforcement could very easily, if somebody saw it and didn't like it and complained, law enforcement could roll up and say, we feel like you're training these people to cause civil disorder.
And you know, Daniel, on the other side of that coin, and you know, in my basic instructor training course that I took, which is put on by the NRA, or at least NRA counselors, basically it's train the trainer kind of thing. They said that you know, every instructor, their job is to ensure that their students have the knowledge, skill, and attitude, and I think that's a really important one. So essentially, I've been given the authority, the responsibility of declining or turning away clients or potential clients that don't have the maturity, right, and don't have the right attitude, and maybe don't take seriously what it is that firearms are, do, and mean.
Yeah. And I agree wholeheartedly with that. I think it should be up to the instructor or trainer or even somebody who's just knowledgeable enough out on the range to look at some.
Yeah, I think Colin Noir did Colin, I think maybe his name is. Did a series on Facebook of the 7 or 8 different types of people you see at the range. It's quite humorous, but it absolutely holds water.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've seen I've seen all kinds of videos like that where, you know, it shows the uneducated shooter that is flagging everybody up and down the line because he's looking around. Then you've got the tactical shooter that comes up with his hip holster and his LBV with all these different mags. And,
the gear queer, right?
Yeah. or the firearms instructor or the Olympic shooter, all of these different things. Yeah, I've seen them all firsthand, and it's funny as hell to see people like that at the range.
I encourage all of our listeners to at least give it a Google. Anyway.
So, but now, paragraph 3, this was a complete new add-on for this bill. Paragraph 3 states, assembles with one or more persons with the intent of intimidating any person or group of persons by drilling, parading, or marching with any firearm, any explosive or incendiary device, or any components or combination thereof. Now, that's kind of, you know, because again, it says,
you know, Daniel, and I've said this, I think probably on every single show that we've had, that gun control isn't about keeping people safe. It's about literally controlling people.
Yeah,
it's not going to help anybody, and just, you know, I think there's several instances. You know, the story of the Houston sergeant who was shot and killed, I believe it was on Monday. She was responding to a domestic violence call, and the suspect had been charged with domestic violence in the past. Shot and killed this deputy, and the I guess the Houston police chief I'll have to look up his name, but you know, he was on CNN this morning talking about how you either choose women, children, you know, your wives, your sister, your aunts, or you side with the NRA, but you can't do both. And I, anytime anybody ever gives me a definite, like it's either black or white, I start scratching my head and looking to see what's behind it, because the guy that's standing there in uniform has a gun on his hip. And he's telling people, well, either you're with women or you're with people who want to teach you how to use your firearm safely. That was my interpretation. I don't know if you saw the broadcast or had any thoughts about it.
No, I hadn't. I hadn't seen the broadcast. Hadn't seen the broadcast or anything on that yet. I don't mean to jump off topic, but it was just while you were talking, it was just it was just too much to ignore. I'm going to need you to use your credentials and go out there to the air station and talk to the powers that be and tell them they cannot do a flyover.
I heard you say something about a flyover, and then it went blank. Say it again.
The flyover from the air station.
All right, so I heard you say something about credentials and the air station, and then you blanked out. So say that part again.
Yeah. Well, basically, what I said was I'm going to need you to use your credentials and talk to the powers that be over there at the air station and tell them not to do flyovers at your house anymore from this time to this time on Tuesday nights.
Is that what's causing this? I think
it could be. I don't know, but the whole time you were talking about that, I could hear the jets flying over your house out there, the sound of freedom, as it were.
America.
But yeah, no, I hadn't seen or heard anything on what you were talking about. The Houston deputy that was shot and killed. I'm going to have to do some looking into that.
Yeah, and essentially the police chief is making a political statement saying that if you support the NRA, if you support gun manufacturers or the gun lobby, then you are anti women's rights kind of thing. And I see this as divisive and trying to polarize. I think that this has kind of been my observation. I go into a gun shop and they are very much so geared towards the male clients. It's a very masculine dominated sport, I guess. And whether it's a sport industry, what have you. But I think that with women making up 51% of the population, that there is a huge delta that we need to close. There's a gap that needs to be filled, and I think that is really getting the word out to women to really become involved and engaged in the sport. Don't be the victim, be the victor.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, and it's actually kind of interesting that you mentioned that shooting in and of itself is more kind of a masculine dominated sport. I don't know, have you every gun store that I've been to, while they are very limited on stock for this stuff, every gun store that I've been to in this area at least, they do try to cater to the female shooter. I've seen as crazy as it sounds, the multicolored the Rugers and all that other stuff, the LCPs, that they come in pink, purple, sky blue, all this other stuff. I've seen off the wall colored neon magazines,
right,
shooting vests.
Those things are fine and well, but most men are going to carry like inside the waistband, outside the waistband, appendix carry, something like that. For women and their clothing, it's designed and really kind of to carry concealed for women in the same fashion that things that are readily available, it's unflattering. So I think they should really focus on having, like, it's great that you've got these pink guns and purple magazines, but I think if you really want to cater to the needs of women, give them options to carry without having to change their wardrobe. Right, because even when I started to carry all the time, I changed mine a little bit, because you don't want to wear solid colors. You want to keep shirts long, untucked, because you're not trying to advertise. You don't want to print. But for women, who it's very common to see them carrying purses, bags, something like that. Have those items that are designed for carrying firearms, but also carrying them securely. Because let's face it, a lot of women they take care of the children. So having to hold on to that purse 24/7, and it's not practical. So put some kind of mechanism in there that they can lock it to prevent their children who may be curious and start rummaging through stuff, deny them that access. You know what I mean? And have items like that are thoughtful and not just, ooh, that's pretty, right? I mean right. Just because you make it pink doesn't necessarily mean it's designed for women. Make it so it's functional and practical for women, but also fits and helps them, in their own identity. You know what I mean? So they don't have to change who they are in order to carry. They don't have to change the style of clothes they wear. They don't have to change. You understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And I've seen, like you were saying, the woman typically takes care of the child and everything, takes the child to the store with them and everything. I can't tell you the number of times I've heard, there's one that comes to my mind in particular. I can't remember if it was at Walmart or at Target. But the child was sitting in the buggy, mom had her purse right there, and child pulled a friggin' revolver out that mom kept in the purse and accidentally shot and killed his mother. Now, as far as, catering, to women is,
I mean, I wouldn't call it catering to women. I think being responsive to the needs of women is a more accurate description. But yes.
And it comes in various sizes for various sized women, but it's basically just a sports bra that has a universal holster on the front of it for a small to medium frame pistol.
I mean, I think we should burn all the bras, but that's just my
Free the tatas, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, God bless them, everyone.
But yeah, I have seen things out there, like you said, purses, the bra holster, for example. I've seen belly bands with built-in holsters and magazine pouches.
So you mentioned belly bands, and I have a kind of a somewhat funny story. I mean, I guess it's funny now, but it wasn't at the time. I was in, I just bought this belly band and I was wearing it, and I was walking in downtown. I think it was Dunedin in Florida, and my daughters had come to visit, and one of my magazines had worked its way out and fell on the ground, and my daughter's like, "What the hell is that, Tupac?" And it was probably one of the funniest thing I've ever heard her say. But I mean, so my point is that make sure you check the reviews on it, because you don't want your pistol or your magazines to be falling onto the sidewalk. One, because they're expensive, and two, because you don't want to create a big scene.
Yeah. Speaking of gear, I don't know. I'm sure you saw me using this while we were stationed together at Parris Island, because this was when I had it. Galco used to make a holster. Didn't survive very long. Apparently, it wasn't too popular. But when I carried a 1911 for personal carry, I actually preferred a shoulder holster to carry my 1911, and it was really difficult to find a shoulder holster that I could wear and keep concealed, because a lot of times a shoulder holster has a strap that runs across the front of your chest to keep it held in place. And Galco made this holster. The frame and straps and everything actually go underneath your shirt, and then the holster attaches to a platform by way of the kind of like the mushroom clips, like you see with the old style shirt stays or the sheet stays for your bed.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was how the holster attached, and
interesting.
Yeah, it was very convenient, because it was height adjustable, so I could wear it for a lower, almost like a really high cross draw instead of a traditional shoulder style holster, and I loved it because I could keep the frame on, and then if I went somewhere, like on base, for example, where I couldn't necessarily have the gun, I could take the holster and gun off, leave that in the car, and I still had the frame on. And
yeah, you didn't have to
nobody knew it.
to take your stuff apart. Yeah, that's a really smart idea. I really wish I would have checked that out before, because I carry inside the waistband and in the middle of my back, a small on my back, and now I have a huge rip in my seat in my truck from the constant pressure of that pistol. I mean, so it's comfortable for me to drive and ride like that, but apparently my seat didn't think so and gave way. But on the Facebook page, I'd be interested to see kind of what the general consensus is. Where does everybody like to carry? What do they prefer? Is it a glove box kind of thing where it's only in your car, or do you carry it every day on your person?
Yeah. Me personally, I'm a shooting side hip carry. I use a paddle holster with active retention, and I keep the holster itself canted at about a 20-degree angle to the front. So it's not straight up and down, but it's also not a real extreme angle where I'm also almost small of the back carry. But yeah, I'm a strong side carry and 2 additional magazines on weak side.
Yeah. See, I usually only carry the magazine that's in the pistol, just because I'm not planning on getting into a shootout necessarily. But the holster I have is it's called a uni holster, UNIHOLSTR,
mm-hmm.
and I found them at a gun show. And the reason I bought this holster, it was really affordable, but it also fit any gun that I had. And the guy had, several, to demonstrate. He had a high point. He had the Glock 43. He had a M&P Shield. So he had several different size guns, and all of them work. And it was it's designed kind of like Grandpa's coin purse, where you put tension on the outside or on the ends, and it opens up kind of like a fish mouth.
Yeah.
That's what I use, only because I can change guns very easily, and it's pretty soft. So, it's very comfortable to ride inside the waistband. It's it's my personal favorite. I have some of those. What do they call them? Kydex. It's basically the really hard plastic. Yeah. That they heat up and it molds to your gun, and it's great for retention. But if you're trying to carry conceal, I can only put it on the outside of my waistband, and it's it's hard plastic, and it doesn't really it's not very forgiving on things like furniture and seats.
Right. Me personally, I carry the Blackhawk holsters with the Serpa lock. I actually started carrying what they call the Blackhawk Omnivore. They say this thing will eat over 150 different models of firearm, and what they mean by that, they have 3 different models. 2 of them are light bearing, 1 is non-light bearing. For the light bearing models, it works with a Streamlight or a Surefire. The one that I have works with a Surefire TLR1 HL. And basically, any railed pistol that you can mount this flashlight on will work in this holster, because the retention is on the flashlight and not on the weapon. So I can carry my Glock 19 in there. I can carry my SIG 2022 in there. If I have a 1911 with a rail on it, I can carry that in there. Any type of railed weapon with that light on it, this holster will work. And they're relatively inexpensive too. You can pick one up for about $40 on Amazon, and it's a great option for me. I love it. That's another thing I would question our listeners out there. Do you prefer Kydex or leather? On top of what position do you prefer to carry from? Do you prefer Kydex or leather?
And do you prefer it from the front or the back? Oh wait, what are we talking about here?
No, I said Kydex, not spandex.
Whoa. Slowly roll, man. Slowly roll.
Oh, man. So, yeah, that would...
I mean, I like options. I like to change it up from time to time. I mean, I do like the Kydex when I'm at the range, and doing things like that, because it's really easy to draw. So there's pros and cons to each, and I think anybody who owns firearms should absolutely budget for accessories, because you never know what's going to work for you. What works for me in some situations doesn't work at all, and I imagine the same goes for every other gun owner. So yeah. I mean, if there's any accessory that you should buy with your firearm, though, of course, I would recommend a good holster that has that meets the needs. Ask yourself honestly, like, what do you intend to use this firearm for? Is it just going to the range and having fun, shooting competitions? That may be one kind. If you're going to carry it every single day, everywhere you go, rain, sleet, or snow, then it may have other requirements to meet your needs. So, the point is budget to really explore all your options.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the other thing too. That's we were talking about small to back, strong side, cross carry, shoulder holster. Thigh holsters. I actually do like wearing a thigh holster from time to time when I go to the range, because that's just more of a natural draw location right there, because my hand is already right there beside it. I don't have to bring my hand up.
Is this like inside the thigh where you got to wear a skirt to access it?
Oh no. Well, we can talk more about it next week. We're running out of time. So real quick, don't forget to tune in on Monday nights to listen to my other show, Two Beards Talking, with my co-host Donnie J, where we talk about politics, current events, whatever we really want to talk about, really. And again, big support, big shout out to all the troops out there. We appreciate everything you're doing out there. Keep up the good work. Come home safe. We're all rooting for you. Raj, you got anything else?
Hey, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas if you can't tune in before then, and Happy New Year.
Absolutely. Enjoy your holidays. From those of us here at 2AT Second Amendment Talk, Daniel Sanders for Rod Burks. Thanks for listening, everybody.